Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a little special one because it is marking my 100th video. Now it's a little behind because it said I had already uploaded my 100th upload, but you know, whatever. This is just a little milestone for me, but this is a compilation video that I put together of the more popular soap making videos just for visual interest because today is a story time video. Now I did want to talk about this because I feel like it's very important for specifically women. My channel here is the majority of people that watch this are women, so I feel like this is you know, pretty relevant to you. So last year I'm going to tell you a story about my, I guess, drama from my previous job. And while it's not, you know, fun to gossip about stuff like this, I do feel like it is important to bring up kind of some of the struggles that some of us go through in the workplace. So anyway, without further ado, here it goes. So I got hired on to a company. It was a very small company. I want to say there were only about 200 and something employees there. And, you know, I had meetings with the CEO and stuff like that because it was just a very small company. Anyway, and it wasn't the CEO that I had a problem with, just so you know. I got hired on as a project manager, and they definitely needed it because their project management skills at this company were very much lacking. They didn't have a clear direction, and, you know, it was just not great. But anyway, I got hired on, and I started to work on, like, there were 20 some projects that they had running all at the same time. So I started on Halloween of 2022, and it's a very interesting time. I was introduced to several people there. There were engineers, marketing people, and I actually technically sat in the marketing group, which, you know, my job wasn't marketing, but whatever. And there were some quality people that all sat in the same area. So when I first started, I was getting to know a lot of the people just so that, you know, because I'd be working pretty closely with a lot of these guys and whatnot. And one of the people that I got to know was one of the engineering managers. Well, I take that back. He wasn't a manager at the time. He was just a senior engineer, but he had been there for 18 years, which is a long time. So practically at the inception of this company. So anyway, I got to know him. He seemed like a really nice guy. And he followed it up, our meeting, with saying something like, I'm really glad you're here. And, you know, on the surface, it's like, okay, you know, thanks. That's great. I'm glad to be here, you know, kind of thing. Anyway, I didn't realize that would kind of kick off the sexual harassment. Yeah, so anyway, I had been at the company for about 2 weeks at this point, and one of the things that they used for inter-office communication was just Teams. And so if you're familiar with Teams, it's just it's a hub where you can have video meetings, and there's also a chat function where you can talk with your colleagues on it. In the past, companies had their own like internal chat system, but I guess they're all kind of moving to Teams now because I'm at, you know, as a side note, I'm at like a pretty big company right now where they still use Teams as the chat function, where they used to use the inter-office thing. But anyway, so I'm on Teams and he's messaging me, you know, just questions about how things are going and how I like it, stuff like that, which again is fine. But at this point, I'd only been there for, you know, just a short amount of time that he was the only one that was really messaging me. So it was kind of interesting. And I thought, well, okay, maybe he cares, whatever. Well, then he started asking me a bunch of questions about my hobbies and what I like to do outside of work. And, you know, again, it's not really a boundary issue for me to talk about stuff like that because I'm, you know, if you know me, I'm a pretty open book. I will tell you whatever you want to know, within reason, of course. I believe in being personable. I don't think it's any way to live to just stay private all the time and just, you know, you're spending 8 hours a day with these people. It's good to, you know, I wouldn't say make friends, but just be cordial with everybody and have kind of a personal relationship, you know, or not personal relationship, but you know what I'm saying. Just be personable with people on the job. So that's always been my philosophy. And so when he's asking me these questions, you know, I have no problem answering and I don't think anything of it. So the topic came up to beer, or I think I'm trying to think of like the sequence of events here because I'm trying to figure out why he said this, but because it truly was out of the blue. But he was telling me about beer, and I do like beer occasionally. I can't have too much of it, but I do like it occasionally. And so I was sharing, the different ones that I like and whatever. Well, then he started saying something about shower beers. And first of all, just for the record, I don't drink beer in the shower. I think that's weird. People do it. I've heard of that. That's fine for you, but it's not for me. But the fact that he brought it up with me, a brand new person, of the opposite sex, I was kind of like, well, I didn't really answer him. Let me put it that way. I changed the subject and said something about food, I think, and cooking and eating food. And the guy said, I like to eat ass on Teams through chat with me. I like to eat ass. I'm not exaggerating. He said that to me. And of course, think of it from my perspective. I have been there for 2 weeks. All right. Brand new job. I left a management career from another company that I actually really liked to try this opportunity in medical devices. And I didn't want to get fired. And this guy had been there for 18 years as an engineer. I didn't want to rock the boat, so I just dropped it. I didn't even respond to that. I changed the subject and started talking about coffee. He got the hint at that point and stopped, going in that direction. Over time, I kind of stepped back from talking to him. So before I would, casually ask him, oh, how's your morning, or good morning, or how's your day? How's your wife? Right? And, maybe I'm being dramatic, but I do tend to be a little bit more of an emotional person because I'm a creative. So after all that happened, I would be interacting with my other colleagues, just looking them in the face, thinking deep down inside, do they realize that this guy is this way? Am I alone? All these questions would pop into my head. And it got to a point where, I was trying to ignore the guy. Okay. And he kept coming around, and the work setup at this place was open office. So we all had cubes, but they were open, and the walls to the cubes were not very high. So as people walked in and out of the area, people would just wander up to your cube and just start talking to you over the wall. And it was pretty normal. My desk was close to the, high traffic area. So I used to get a lot of people swing by my cube and just talk to me. And one of those people would be him, and he would swing by, but I felt really uncomfortable knowing that he liked to eat ass and he wanted to let me know. And so he would come by and try to make small talk with me, and I would be very kind of short with him, just, basically caveman grunting answers at him. But at the time, I was also trying to learn my job. I didn't, I was busy. There were 20 projects that I had to juggle, and, I just, whatever. Well, then, because I wasn't being myself basically with him, he saw that and I guess didn't like it. So he would come around and be like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? Did I do something? Are you mad at me? And it was weird because he would do this in person, face to face, but he would also type it in Teams. Like, are you mad at me? What did I do? And I'm thinking to myself, I am not your wife. I am not your girlfriend. I'm not your daughter. I am nothing to you. Why do you even care? And he just kept poking me and harassing me about it. I want to say I let that go on for about a month until I finally said something. And I reached out to his boss, because my boss, being that this was a small company, I reported to the chief commercial officer, and he was very, he was never there because he was traveling a lot. He did a lot of, sales outside of everything and, whatever, which in retrospect, I should have created some kind of meeting with him and talked to him, but I didn't. That's just the reality. So I went to his boss, who was around all the time. And so I sat him down, talked for about 2 hours to him. Because basically, I have another situation from a previous company that I worked with where I had this similar situation happen. I didn't do anything about it, and I just let it fester. And this time I actually was like, I've got to do something about this, because why do we let ourselves get into these situations where we're uncomfortable at work and the person that caused that uncomfortableness is just walking around like, you know, oh, no big deal. You know, I did what I did and I have no apologies and blah, blah, blah. Because that's kind of some BS if you ask me. But anyway, so I sat down with him, and of course his manager was very sympathetic, which is good. He was a very nice guy, and he's like, yeah, that is unacceptable. He even said the shower beer thing was unacceptable, which, you know, I agree, but I didn't know if that was as extreme as, you know, just telling me he wanted to eat ass or some, you know, just absolutely ridiculous, what a ridiculous monkey man. But anyway, so I told him that, and his boss was the chief operating officer, who I did have a decent relationship with. So I had that conversation with his boss, and I said, you know, I don't want to get him in trouble. First of all, why did I say that? He should have gotten in trouble. But me being the you know, I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to, you know, kick the hornet's nest or anything like that. And again, I just want to reiterate, the guy has been there for 18 years, you know, obviously they kept him around because he, you know, knew what he was doing and had some value to the company. And here I am, just this brand new, like, been here for like, at this point, like a month and a half. And, you know, who am I, right? So I'm telling the guy, like, I don't want to get him in trouble. And, you know, I don't know, I want to keep this between you and me. And he's just like, basically telling me, yeah, you know, we can keep it between us, but if he ever does it again, you have to come to me immediately or, you know, whatever, say something immediately. So I agreed to that. And, anyway, he pulled me aside like a week later, and he was just like, look, he's like, I couldn't take it. I went ahead and told the COO, about what happened. And, you know, interesting that he did, because the COO never reached out to me to talk to me about it. But we did eventually talk about it. The COO was an interesting character. He was a very nice guy, but you could tell he was very uncomfortable with things like that. And so I didn't want to make him more uncomfortable or anything. And I could tell he didn't really want to talk to me or face me for a while. He was still nice to me, but didn't really, you know, make the small talk like he did. And I was like, okay, well, he's probably uncomfortable, probably doesn't know what I'm thinking, probably is afraid that I'm going to try to sue them if, you know, whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I'm an emotional person. I had all these things running through my head. So anyway, I told his boss, so let me just give the guy a name. We'll call him Joe, just because, you know, it'll be easier that way. And his boss was Peter. So Peter, at this point, I wasn't even talking to Joe. Peter and I were talking a lot, and eventually we came to the conclusion that, like, let's go ahead and mend fences between me and Joe so that we can work, because it's, you know, we're gonna have to work together. I agreed that I would be forgiving about it, just not bring it up again, and, you know, let bygones be bygones. So anyway, I decided to start talking to Joe again. So the minute I started talking to Joe again, he immediately brings up, were you mad at me? What did I do? So, of course, I just was like, you know, I just have boundaries. I told him this. I said, I have boundaries. I needed to set them, and that's that. You know, don't worry about it. Let's just forget about it. And so he did, for a time, until he started doing it again. And I was like, this is crazy. And the span of time with this, so like, I didn't talk to the guy for a long time. It was probably about 4 months. So he did this to me after 2 weeks. I waited a month to tell Peter. I ignored Joe for about 3 or 4 more months. And then we're probably in April of the next year. And I start talking to him again. Well, the company got bought out by someone else, and he got promoted. So Joe got promoted, and they fired Peter. So I was kind of like stuck, because Peter was my ally. You know, he was there for me during all this. His boss, we'll call him Sam, the COO. Sam didn't bring it up again. He didn't want to talk to me about it and didn't want to do anything about it, basically. So here I am, sitting at this company with no ally, and this creep being promoted to engineering manager. And this whole time, the guy is being a gatekeeper. So he's having these meetings with this new company and not sharing information. His whole team is terrified they're going to get fired because they were seeing like rounds of firings and all this stuff. And I was trying to reassure them that they were going to be okay. But then I was trying to reach out to Joe and say like, look, you know, what's going on? Your team is concerned. And he just wouldn't tell me anything. So eventually he traveled so much that we barely saw him in the beginning there. And when he was on site, him and I got into a huge argument in the morning, and it got to a point where I was literally telling him what's what and everything. And some people heard and whatnot, but that's not what ended up getting me fired. The interesting thing was what got me fired was there was another girl there, let's call her Sarah, who was on my team. And she was, you know, more of the heavy marketing person. So she did all the social media posts and all the, you know, strategy behind all that stuff and branding. And she had a guy that reported to her who did all the animations and images and stuff for the website. So anyway, I sat next to the guy that reported to her, and we talked quite a bit. And I really liked him, and I'll call him Jim. And I really liked Jim. He reported to Sarah, and she didn't really like the fact that I talked to him. So there were a couple times when she would come and say like we were talking too much and, you know, all that stuff, which is not even true. Like there was one day when after the company had gotten bought and their representatives were on site, you know, having meetings and whatnot, where she was walking back and forth through that area, and we just happened to be talking, and it would be like for 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, you know, it really wasn't anything, but she just happened to walk through every single time, and she assumed that we had been talking the whole day. So she came up to us and basically told us to stop. And first of all, I don't report to you, Sarah. Jim does, but I don't. I didn't say that to her, but I was just kind of like, whatever. So because Jim did report to her, I was like, I just dropped it, and you know, he's got to comply with whatever she wants, and so that's fine. But the thing about Sarah was, like, when I first started, she was very kind to me. She was just real, you know, wanting to get to know me and all that stuff. And then as soon as that happened, she was just done with me. Like, the new wore off, and, you know, she just let me to my devices. But I should have seen the red flags in the very beginning, because I went up to her one time to ask her a question about something, and she told me to Google it. And I was like, dude, seriously? Like, if that were the answer, don't you think I would have come up with that by now? Like, what do you think I am, an idiot? So I didn't say that to her. Like, all these things are like in my mind. I try to be as professional as possible at work, and not, you know, again, I don't like to rock the boat. So she came up to me the next day and apologized for that. She's like, I don't want us to, you know, I don't want you to think that you can't talk to me, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay, whatever. So anyway, as, you know, the months go by, what happens between me and her is, like, she basically demonstrates that she's a sociopath. So she'll be really, really kind to me, and then she'll, like, get mad at me, and then she'll be kind to me, and then she'll get mad at me, and then it's just, it just went back and forth and back like that. And it's just, you know, I was really struggling to deal with her mood swings, right? And again, I don't report to this woman. I report to somebody completely different. And I have a feeling she thought I did report to her, or like something, or she just felt like she could throw her weight around and like tell me what to do. So I don't know if that's the case, but it sure seemed like it, the way she talked to me and whatnot. So like, for example, we had this meeting that would happen on every Monday that was that my actual boss stopped coming to, and he actually told me, like, you know, I don't want the notes from this meeting because it's pointless. So he was like really, you know, an advocate for not having pointless meeting after pointless meeting. And so one day, you know, the first day I did it, I didn't send the notes out. She came up to me, Sarah did, and said, you know, are you going to send out the notes? And I said, no, you know, my boss said he thought it was a waste of time, so sorry. I was nice about it. Like, I wasn't telling her that she was a waste of time or anything, but I just said that, you know, he didn't want them. And so she glared at me, like, just like, if her look could cut my throat, it would. So anyway, that's kind of what happened there. And that I think that's the moment that kind of triggered this whole on-off thing, like where she was just, you know, nice and then mean, and then nice and then mean. So shortly before I got laid off, so this is after the company was bought, I was a little concerned that I was going to get laid off. My boss, you know, assured me like, oh, I'm sure you'll be fine. They don't have a project manager. They're going to need a project manager, blah, blah, blah. I was still kind of like hesitant because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, in retrospect, I probably should have been looking for a job just in case, but I really liked my job, and I, you know, even despite all this, there were a lot of good people there that I liked, and, you know, it's a shame. And the work itself was really interesting. But anyway, so let's back up here. So anyway, I was going to go on vacation, and this was going to happen in August of last year. And the week before I left for vacation, that Monday, Sarah was asking for budget stuff. And my boss had asked me before to create some budgeting and keep track of like people's spending and all that stuff. So I had this huge dashboard, that very intricate thing. And I guess she didn't know about it, even though I shared it at one point during one of the meetings, but it was just kind of like a passing comment. I guess she didn't really think about it, but I shared it with her and said, hey, will this help you with your meeting? And she was just like, she praised it. She was like, oh my gosh, look what Liz put together. This is amazing. Do you want to sit in on these meetings and talk about it and all this stuff? And so I told her, I was like, yeah, if you want me to, and if you need me to go through it with you, I can and whatnot. And she just praised me for it. Well, that happened throughout the week. And then on Friday, the CEO of the other company who was actually taking over for this merger came to visit the site, and he was going to have a meeting with us because everybody was having people were generally confused who they were reporting to and all that stuff. And it was kind of like a just get to know you type of meeting. And that's fine. So this was on a Friday at like, I want to say it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. So, I'm leaving for vacation so the next morning we were going to be leaving at like 3 a.m. to start driving down to Texas. And so I actually was hoping I could get off a little bit early that day, but it wasn't happening. In fact, I worked extra that day because I normally got off at like 3:30, and the meeting started at like 3, and then it went on and on and on. And like, at first it was fine because we were talking to the CEO, and he actually made a comment at one point about who I reported to. And he mentioned, I forgot the name I gave him, but he mentioned the creep. And I said, oh, no. I was told I'd be reporting to. And I named some other guy from the new company. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'd be reporting to him. And it was just kind of like a, bullet dodged moment. But anyway, so we were in this meeting. And then at one point, all these salespeople came in. And I was just like, these are all guys that work out in the field. And they like, pitch the product to all the different places and whatnot. And for some reason they were there, and they started talking about how great this merger was and how they would accomplish great things together. And I kid you not, they just repeated this like over and over, like, this is a wonderful opportunity and you guys are in a great position and blah, blah, blah. And I was just kind of like, okay, this meeting is over. I'm ready to go home. I need to leave early in the morning. I need to finish packing. And at that point it was like 4:30. And so I was just like, cause like this meeting went on and on. And I had to pee really bad. And it was just, I was done. So anyway, I got up and I didn't even get up. I waited for another one of my colleagues who got up and left. And I was like, oh, this is my opportunity. So I got up and I left. And so I went to the bathroom. And as I was coming out, I started talking to one of the junior engineers about the meeting and whatnot and whatever. And as I was talking to the guy, Sarah marches up to me and she's just like, are you planning on returning to the meeting? And I said, no. I said, you guys are done. You're talking about sales stuff, which has nothing to do with project management. And she goes, but he's the CEO of the company. And I said, yeah, I know. And he's no longer talking. You're talking about sales. But he's the CEO of the company. And I said, look, Sarah, I understand that, but I'm leaving at 3 a.m. tomorrow and you guys are talking about sales. I think the meeting is done. And she goes, I'm really tired of your attitude, Liz. And I was shocked because all week she was praising me for this budget thing. And now all of a sudden she's tired of my attitude. What the heck, woman? Like, what is your problem? Honestly. So anyway, she does this in front of everybody. And mind you, my other colleague is standing right over there. Why did she come just to me to bitch and complain about me not going back to the meeting when my colleague is standing right there, not at the meeting? Like, and with no intention of going back. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, anyway, so she says that to me. She's like, I'm really tired of your attitude. And she walks away. And I said, I'm tired of your attitude. And so I left, right? I texted the junior engineers and I'm like, I'm sorry you had to see that. And one of them texted me back and was like, oh my gosh, that was like insane. And was just going on and on about how, horrible she was and all that stuff. Well, anyway, so I leave for vacation and it kind of sucks because it, goes off on a bad foot. Here I am supposed to be relaxing and I got this stupid, thing on my mind. I don't know. Well, anyway, I vented to my parents on the way down because we had a nice drive to talk about it, and I got over it and had a good time and whatever. Well, I had taken an extra day of PTO, so that following I was off for a week, and then the following Monday I took off just to decompress and stuff. And at like 2:30 on Monday afternoon, I got a call from HR telling me basically not to come back. And keep in mind too, like while this whole thing with Sarah was going on, like I was dealing with the undercurrent of Joe. That's what I called him, the creep. Right? So I had all these like forces against me, and I still liked my job, which, you know, to me, like that's just how lenient I am as a person. And I should have been pissed. I should have been pissed this whole time and just been like looking for another job, and just, you know, these people could go pound sand for all I care. But anyway, so she says that to me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like really? And she goes, yes, David and other management decided that you know, you should no longer work here, or some garbage like that. And I was like, David? So David is like the sales manager who has nothing to do with me at all. I think I had spoken to him once in the entire time I had been there. And so I said as such to the HR woman, who actually was a new employee. And so I felt kind of bad for her too. But I said to her, I was just like, what does David have anything to do with my employment? I report to Mark. And she's just like, I don't know. That's just what they told me. And so by quote unquote other management, it was Sarah. It was definitely 100% Sarah. So I told her, I was like, well, okay, well, that's pretty unfair. So what about the sexual harassment claim that I have? And so she was taken aback because nobody had told her about it. Nobody had told her because they let go of Peter, and Sam wasn't saying anything about it. And so, yeah, she's like, well, now I have to investigate this. So I had to have a separate interview with another representative from HR. And so this company used a third party for their HR stuff. So I had to, you know, they were unaffiliated, but at the same time, you know, they managed the HR stuff for them. So I had a series of interviews with her, and she said, and I told her, like, there's evidence, you can look at my computer, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, she, well, let me just back up. The reason for me being fired was they said my bad attitude. Okay. So, I had to laugh at that because I was like, my bad attitude. Okay. I was the only person trying to reassure everybody that their jobs would be okay. And here I got let go. But, anyway, so when I went to go pick up my stuff and drop off my laptop, I talked to the HR lady. I was wearing sweatpants and a Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops. And, I was real relaxed with her, and I was just joking around with her and stuff. And she goes, you don't sound like you have a bad attitude. I was like, I know, because I don't. And, yeah, so that was a little funny side story. But anyway, so I had to have this interview with this other HR representative, and I told them where they could find the evidence of it because the Teams chat and everything like that. And she said, well, you know, once we do our investigation, you know, I will let you know whether we have made our recommendation to take action, basically. She's like, if we decide not to take action, you won't hear from me. And I was like, okay. So 2 weeks later, I heard from her, and she said they recommended that they take action. And so basically that means that they told them that they should probably do something, discipline the guy, fire him, whatever. But because they found all the evidence, and it was pretty crazy. And I'm telling you, it wasn't just the comment about eating ass. There was other things too that he was saying. His kind of obsessive behavior with me for a while. There was just a lot of weirdness. So anyway, but I just had a conversation with somebody who's still working there. She's a young engineer, and I feel bad for all of them, but he's still there. He's still there doing the same old stuff, you know, being, you know, but she told me, she's just like, I don't like the guy. He's, you know, a jerk, and, you know, he treats me like crap and all that stuff. So I feel bad for them because this guy, he's in this position of power and he's treating his people like crap, and he really needs to suffer some kind of punishment. I mean, he doesn't, I never advocate for somebody to lose their job, but when you're acting the way you're acting, like the way Sam is acting, or not Sam, Joe, the way Joe is acting, like, you deserve it. You really do. And you need to learn a lesson from this, because you can't treat other human beings like that. It's just wrong. But, it is what it is, and that company is probably going to, you know, have its problems. And I've also heard update on Sarah, and apparently nobody talks to her anymore either, which, you know, and then the person that reported to Sarah apparently doesn't talk to anybody and seems sad. And that makes me sad too, because I really liked him, and, you know, it is what it is. But that is the story of how I got fired from my job last year. And you can do everything right and still attract the ire of somebody or whatever it may be. The thing that always, like, I never really understood is the fact that this is not the first time I've been sexually harassed at work. And I don't understand, because I feel like maybe I'm hard on myself, but I feel like I look like a troglodyte. I'm not like, the biggest beauty or anything like that. But again, I do believe in being personable and, talking to people, because we're all human and whatnot. But I guess it maybe is misconstrued as flirting. But yeah, I actually, at one of my previous jobs, I had somebody that we were at a happy hour together. So it was outside of work hours, but it was all work people. And the guy was already pretty trash, and he put his arm around me and then like stuck his hand on the back of my pants. And it was like a very swift movement to where like I couldn't even have stopped it. Like my spider senses were not tingling. But yeah, I did hit him in front of everybody, but like, I don't know. And then I ended up getting in trouble at work for, I guess not doing enough to tell him no, I guess, which I was just like, what should I have done? Like, I barely knew this guy, and then he was also sending me messages on the inner office chat about how he wanted to take me into some private room and do XYZ. And I was just like, dude, this is like literally the chat of the company. Like, but here's the thing. The guy's still there. The guy's still at the company, still doing the job. And from what I understand, still doing the whole sexual harassment thing. So, some people fall for it, some people don't. So my question to you ladies is, why do we do this to ourselves? Why? Granted, my field is very male dominated, which is, that's totally fine. I mean, I'm not knocking that at all, but it's just like, why do we let this happen to ourselves? Some of the women, they give in to that sexual harassment and then they end up doing things. And there was an instance where a girl got pregnant from her boss, it's just, and I guarantee there's worse things that happen. And, why does this happen? Why do we let this happen? So that's my question to you all. And why did I let it happen? I mean, I guess in this case, I didn't let it happen. And then I ended up getting fired. It's insane to me. It really is. I also want to ask you, ladies, why do we treat each other like this? In the case of Sarah, I mean, that blows my mind. Stop doing this to each other. We are already like, a couple steps behind when it comes to some things. Like, why do we stab each other in the back? Just stop. Because again, Sarah wasn't the first one to stab me in the back either. People will pretend to be your friend and then totally just annihilate you. And I don't know, I work from home now, and I feel like it's the best thing that's ever happened, because then I don't have to deal with anybody in person. So anyway, that's it. Let me know if you guys have any stories of your own, and that is my story. And it's pretty depressing, but I'm in a better place now. And if I hadn't gotten laid off from that job, I wouldn't have published my first book, because it, when I was laid off and had no job, I sat around and wrote. So, that's a good thing. But yeah, just let me know if you have any crazy stories like that too. And, be good to each other. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Was confused about who they were reporting to. There was just a